A student's malicious compliance backfires. This is a story from one of my college friends, Zach, and how he one day decided to jokingly comply with a professor's request only to have it shot right back in his face. So for quick background, Zach and I were both students in our university's department for fields such as animation, game design, and film. Since Zach and I studied similar fields, Zach studied game design and I studied animation, we were both required to take a series of classes called 3D modeling with a professor I'll call Professor Rick. Rick was a one-of-a-kind professor who was not only experienced in the field, but also a very understanding and approachable man who knew how to make the subject fun and easy for all of us. 3D modeling, as you'd probably expect, was a very project-heavy class. Each month or so, you'd be assigned a project. Let's say, for example, the project is a fully detailed and functioning lamp model, which you would work on both in and out of class throughout the month. You'd also be required to submit your current progress online each week for feedback and an easy A. As long as you had shown you were making progress. Classes would usually be spent talking about the next part of the project and then working on them. As long as you were actually doing the work, listening to Rick's feedback, and actively improving, the class was an easy A. Pretty simple, right? Anyway, the story begins about a week after one of these projects started. One day, Zach's laptop suddenly had massive technical issues and needed to be repaired. While he was assured the issue could and would be fixed, he wouldn't be able to get the laptop back before the following week, after the deadline for the upcoming progress report was due. Not only was this a problem because Zach couldn't access the progress he had already made on the project, but also because these projects required a very specific type of software that you couldn't access on any normal school computer. These projects also required hours to work on, so he couldn't just borrow a laptop to use to finish the project. So Zach had no choice to talk to Professor Rick about his issue. Thankfully, Rick understood what was going on because, like any person would in this industry, he knew how unpredictable technology could be and that issues tended to happen. On top of that, he knew already that Zach had been working on his project in class. So he knew Zach wasn't lying. So when Zach asked what he could do for the upcoming progress report, Professor Rick said, "Just submit whatever you've got and I'll grade it. Don't worry about it." Now, Zach knew what Professor Rick probably wanted. Since we were required to submit progress reports each week, Zach could have easily used a campus computer to download a previous file and resubmit it with no issue. However, Zach had another idea. See, Zach is a huge fan of dry humor. So did Professor Rick. So Zach thought it would be funny to submit something different for Professor Rick instead of what he'd expect. So he submitted a simple one-page Word document with "Sorry" in big letters written in the middle. He then left a comment attached to the submission saying, "Sorry. I didn't think you'd care what I turned in, so I gave you this." Zach then moved on with his day. Professor Rick said nothing to him about it, and about a week passed. Like I mentioned before, most of these projects were guaranteed A's. So when Zach saw the notification that the grade was submitted, he didn't think to check right away. Then, one day, while looking through the app we used to submit our work, he noticed something. Off. His grade for 3D modeling, which was once an A, was now a C. He was completely confused, and upon investigating what could be the cause, he noticed one grade that looked very different. The progress report received a grade of 200/100ths. Zach was absolutely stunned. How the heck was a negative score even possible? He quickly checked the submission and saw underneath his comment was a reply from Professor Rick that said, "Sorry. I didn't think you'd care what grade 1 gave you. So I just gave you this instead. Zach panicked, thinking he made Professor Rick angry, and as soon as the next class started, he approached the professor with his laptop open to the grade to ask what the heck was happening. But before he could speak, Professor Rick saw the grade, saw Zach's face, and started laughing. He laughed hard. Zach then realized what was going on and started laughing too. The grade was changed to a 100/100ths the very next day. God, I genuinely loved my professors. Professor Rick, hold my beer. The world needs more Professor Ricks. He was Rick trolled. I think Professor Rick also taught Zach a valuable lesson in when and how to be a smartass. Playing a prank or being silly at the right time can de-stress a creative team. Doing it at the wrong time can cause all the stress. God bless the Ricks. One of my project-heavy classes with my mentor as the professor. He knew I was behind, struggling with our final project. He was like, "Promise me you'll finish it and I'll give you the A." He's a stand-up guy. And now the department head. I hope he's still helping out kids who just don't have enough hours in the day. Professor Rick definitely rolled all over Zach with the MC. The professor made the grade. I had a professor similar to this in game design school. Super knowledgeable and loved using the old tried but true, if you know what I mean. Except he would use it in the most hilarious and dry non-suggestive ways. I don't know how he pulled it off. Takes a certain level of tech ability to even come up with the idea of entering a negative grade. I'm equally impressed it didn't crash the system. The is the kind of professor we need. Thanks for sharing, this is hilarious. Fickle Rick. Professor Rick definitely rolled all over Zach with the MC.
If you enjoyed this video, please check out our playlists full of similar content. Epic Eracast is like doom scrolling for your ears. Please like, share, and subscribe.